like the bat in the garage case in Winslow. This chicken just sort of vanished. And she's like, there was an open area there. There's nowhere it could have gone where I couldn't have seen it, but it wasn't there. It popped into our reality and then popped out again.
Willie Gibson, born in Louisville, Kentucky, has worked as a shaman and paranormal researcher for nearly 40 years. He has authored 2 books, including The Shaman Windwalker, which details his life and his experiences with the paranormal. In an April 2025 issue of Paranormal Underground, Gibson wrote of a bizarre encounter he had while investigating a farm back in the mid-1980s. A farmer called me saying something was coming out of the woods and tormenting his animals, causing them to panic and scream at night. At first I told him it didn't sound supernatural, probably just a fox or some critter, but he insisted otherwise. He said the growl he heard wasn't like anything of this earth. Gibson agreed to assist, and the very next day he drove out to the farm to find out what was going on. Upon arriving, Gibson claims that he immediately felt a heaviness in the air. He knocked on the door. A man who looked to be in his 50s, with tan skin, probably from working outside all the time, opened the door. He invited him inside. The house was rustic but well kept. A picture of Jesus hung in the living room. I sat down and the farmer started telling me more about the growling, the terrified animals, and a foul odor that came with the noises. I asked him to take me outside. During the tour of the area, Gibson acknowledged that the place felt off, evil. He asked the farmer if he could walk the grounds alone and check out the area. The farmer agreed. Behind the barn I found tracks, hoof prints, but not from any animal I recognized. That gave me a chill. I went back to the house and told the farmer I wanted to do a stakeout and spend the night. He agreed. Before nightfall, Gibson made a protective circle using blessed salt. The circle acts as a sacred boundary, keeping negative energies and spirits at bay. Gibson set up a folding chair in the middle and took a seat. He expected it to be a long night, hopefully an uneventful one. As the sun set and darkness fell, everything was quiet. Hours passed. Then, around midnight, I heard it. A howl. Then a low growl, and the sound of heavy footsteps coming toward me. I jumped up, grabbed my flashlight, and shined it in the direction of the growl. There it was. Gibson was shocked when a, quote, wolf-like creature, walking upright, appeared out of the darkness. He was standing there, quote, staring straight at me. After a few seconds, the creature began to move directly towards Gibson. As soon as it stepped into the salt circle, it screamed in pain. Apparently the circle had some kind of effect on the creature. Gibson reached into his bag and grabbed a handful of salt and tossed it at the creature, which howled out in pain and fled the circle. Gibson claims that he could see smoke coming off the creature's body. Then, right before my eyes, it vanished into thin air. I stayed in that circle until sunrise. When the sun came up, Gibson returned to the farmer's home and informed him about what had transpired and that he believed that the creature most likely would not be back. As far as Gibson knew, it never returned.
It definitely didn't sound like this upright walking wolf creature was like a flesh and blood creature. It sounded like it was from some other ethereal realm or something, because it was affected by this salt that had been blessed. So it was affected by it. So that suggests that it wasn't just a normal animal, or some kind of unidentified or undiscovered animal. It sounds like there was something else going on there, and possibly, demonic or whatever.
Chad Wilson, author of numerous fiction books, claims that when he was young, He had an encounter of the hoppy kind. He detailed his experience in an article for Paranormal Underground magazine. Guntown, Mississippi. Wilson, then a teenager, was having one of his restless summer nights. It was quite late when Wilson decided to head outside and sit on the front porch. The air was thick but not stormy. It was the kind of heat that didn't move, the kind that settles into everything. The neighborhood was silent, no cars, no crickets, no voices from inside the houses, just stillness and the dim wash of light from the street lamps. And that's when I saw it. Moving into his view from the left side of the road, Wilson was quite surprised at what he was seeing. At first I thought it might be a dog, but as it came closer, it didn't move like a dog at all. It hopped, lightly, almost effortlessly, into the edge of the streetlight's glow, and I could see it more clearly. It looked like a rabbit with its ears laid back along the back of its head, but it was far too large. Easily 2 to 3 feet tall at the back, with a humped posture that gave it an unusual, unfamiliar outline. Wilson claims that the creature's movements were smooth and unhurried. It came to a stop just to the right of my field of view. Its eyes stood out. They might have been reflecting the light from the street lamp, or they might have been glowing. I can't say for sure. But they were small, round, and bright, and they seemed to be focused directly on me. The creature didn't flinch or flee. It simply paused and looked. It felt in that moment like it was aware of me sitting there looking at it. I stayed still. Not out of fear, but out of focus. I was trying to take in exactly what I was seeing. There was nothing frantic or erratic in its behavior. It was calm, controlled. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. According to Wilson, the moment the oversized hare decided to move, it moved fast. Well, faster than I expected. I heard the rhythmic thudding of its footfalls on the pavement as it sprinted down the road. It wasn't the bounding gait of a typical rabbit, and it didn't seem to struggle with its size or speed. It simply ran, and within a few seconds it had disappeared into the darkness. The experience lingered in Wilson's mind, and might have very well played a part in his decision to become an author. I've thought about that night many times over the years. I've looked up animals native to the area, searched for oversized hares, and tried to come up with something that could explain the size, the behavior, and the strange moment of eye contact. But nothing has ever quite matched. I never saw it again.
It just sort of appears there. It's like this really huge bunny with possibly glowing eyes, and it just appears there on the road, and it's staring at this kid. Was it there specifically for that kid? Was there a reason for it? Was there some kind of message behind it? And then it was gone, and it's like it popped into this reality and popped out again, and that's going to be a theme throughout this video that you're going to notice.
It was July 20th, 2020, Winslow, Maine. Jonathan Hager had let his dog Jack outside one evening during a downpour to do his business. This was around the time when all the flood warnings were occurring. He went into the garage and began looking through some of his stuff as he waited for his animal to finish. That is when, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that there was someone else in the garage. He was peering at him from over some clutter. Hager was startled. Whatever this thing was, it did not appear to be human. The head was humanoid shaped, but that was the only thing human about it. The face was that of a bat. It had an upside-down shaped snout that some bats are known for having. It had tiny fangs hanging out of its mouth and the pointed bat ears. The eyes were more human. They had intelligence behind them. Then the creature reacted. It seemed surprised by the fact that Hager could clearly see it. It was almost as though it had been caught off guard, but Hager was not supposed to be able to see it. but then ducked down to hide. Despite the garage door being closed and there was nowhere for it to go, the creature seemingly vanished. Jonathan claims that throughout the encounter and the creepy appearance of the creature, he felt no fear or malice from the entity.
This sort of bat-like creature, appears in this area of Maine where all this flooding was happening. Kind of reminds me of like the Mothman type cases, where like some kind of a disaster happens, and then all of a sudden, prior to people are seeing this weird winged creature. And it kind of reminded me of that. But was it there because of the flooding, or had it just was it just there by chance, and this guy happened to encounter it? And the reaction of the creature is the most interesting, because the creature, to him, he got the sense that this creature was surprised that he could see it. And you hear that in a lot of cases. It's almost like this creature's camouflage ability, whatever it is, it glitched out. And for a moment, this guy was able to see it, and the creature was like, "What? Well, you're not supposed to be able to see me." So of course, he didn't attack the guy or anything. The creature sort of just backed away and kind of, popped out of this reality, I guess, like took off somewhere. But there was nowhere in that garage for it to go, so it dematerialized or something. It was just gone.
In 1892, people residing along Palmetto Creek and the surrounding area were excited when a strange creature suddenly arrived on the scene. In an August 10, 1892 edition of the Daily Democrat newspaper, in a piece titled "An Uncanny Monster," a reporter spoke to witnesses about what they were seeing. The beast is described as being a creature that far outdoes the nightmare ideas of the mythologists, they wrote. The creature was observed in the water, on the land, and in the tall trees of the neighborhood. The report went on to say, the general contour of the head reminded witnesses of a gigantic serpent, with one exception. The snout of the creature ended in a bulbous, monkey-faced knot, similar to a gigantic ape. From the neck down, with the exception of some fin-shaped flippers, which extended from the arms to the waist, the creature, resembles a man, only that the toes and fingers were equipped with claws from 2 to 6 inches long. Tracks made by the beast in the soft mud around Hannes Lake have been taken to Donner's Grove, where they are kept on exhibition in a druggist showcase. Those who have seen the horned thing face to face say that it is a full 9 feet in height, which could hardly be believed only for the fact the tracks mentioned are within a small fraction of 15 inches in length. Fishermen, who surprised the monster sitting silently on a mass of driftwood, declared that its back looked like an alligator's, and that it had a tail a yard long, which forked like a tail of a fish.
In 1829, in this area of California, people were seeing this half man, half alligator creature running around in the swamps. And then, they had the tracks of it. And then it just sort of went away. And it's another one of these cases where it sounds like this creature popped into our reality and then popped out again. Like it was there for a short period of time in 1892, and then it was gone. Because you don't really hear a lot of, Alligator Man cases coming out of California, and specifically that area. So it sounds like it was there for a very short time, like a lot of these cryptids, and then it's gone.
J. Rosina Harlow has contributed short stories to numerous science fiction and fantasy books over the years, though in 2020 she would reach out to Fortean Times magazine with a strange story she swore was true. It involved a chicken. It was Monday, March 6, 2020. They were on the cusp of the lockdown in the UK. Harlow's husband had been at home all week recovering from an illness that may or may not have been the infamous one. I had been at work. At about 5 p.m. he rang me to say that he had watched the government press conference and that I now needed to self-isolate, as I was in the household of someone who was unwell. So I called off the remainder of my work and set off for home. Harlow noted that on the roads there was a tangible sense of anxiety. She observed people driving with dazed looks on their faces as the reality of the lockdown began to set in, and that something dangerous was sweeping across the world, threatening to engulf everybody. Our stretch of the M20, temporarily restricted to 50 miles per hour, was suddenly back to 70-80 miles per hour with most drivers as they flew past, ignoring the cameras. I got home somewhat relieved and looked in the side mirror as I backed onto the driveway alongside my husband's car. As I did, I was astounded to see quite clearly in the mirror 2 large, pale, bald chicken legs, each with 3 long toes, edging furtively into his near side wheel well. The legs stepped very deliberately backwards, as if it were in the process of emerging and had seen me and been caught. I had the peculiar feeling that I shouldn't be witnessing this event, and my senses were telling me this isn't right. I stared in disbelief as they went out of sight. If there was a bird attached to them, it must have been about the size of a large domestic chicken. Harlow noted that she and her husband lived in a suburban area in Kent, and she had never once seen chickens around and didn't know of anyone nearby that kept them, especially one of a larger size. She finished backing into the driveway and immediately got out and knelt down beside her husband's car to inspect. There was nothing there, but a piece of trim on that side was hanging loose. Still, no bird was visible under or behind the car, and our drive is very open, so there's nowhere it could have quickly hidden. There was no evidence of feathers or excrement, bits of straw or other debris that might suggest a nest. Harlow also checked under the hood with a flashlight. She also turned the wheels. From what she could tell, there wasn't even room under the wheel arch for a bird of that size to roost. I still refer to this creature as chicken legs in a jokey way, but I am convinced I saw something weird and out of place that day. She wondered if the chicken was a type of nature or liminal entity that had been manifested by the sense of panic and uncertainty in the air at the time. It reminded her of the crisis apparitions that visit people during times of great stress.
Was the chicken, as she thought, brought there because of what was happening, what was going on in the air at the time, the energy of that day, of the day the lockdown happened and people were kind of freaking out and scared, and did this, whatever it was, manifest because of that? Did that appear to her? Was there a message behind it with Wilson's case? I guess with every case in this video, is there a reason why these beings appeared? Are these appearing to specifically these individuals? And is there a reason behind it?